Easy and Slow Storytelling with Howard Schultz. Howard Schultz is often remembered as the man who turned Starbucks into a global brand. But that image hides a deeper story. A story about identity, power, and the quiet tension between ideals and scale. To understand Howard Schultz, you first have to forget the idea of Starbucks as a coffee company. Because from the beginning, that was never what he was trying to build. Most people think of Schultz as a marketing genius, a polished executive, a man who sold coffee by selling comfort. But that picture is incomplete. Howard Schultz was driven less by coffee and more by a question: what does a company owe its people? He grew up in Brooklyn, in public housing, in a family where money was always uncertain. His father worked a series of blue-collar jobs: truck driver, factory worker, delivery man, jobs without security, jobs without benefits. When Schultz was young, his father broke his ankle on the job. There was no health insurance, no compensation, no safety net. The family spiraled. That moment stayed with him, not as a dramatic turning point, but as a quiet wound, a memory that shaped how he thought about work and dignity. Years later, when Schultz entered the corporate world, he noticed something unsettling. Companies talked about people as costs, as line items, as variables to be optimized. He saw what happened when loyalty flowed only one way. Before Starbucks, there was no grand coffee vision. Schultz worked in sales, then marketing, then appliances. He was ambitious, but not yet certain. Everything changed when he joined a small coffee company in Seattle. It wasn't Starbucks as we know it today. It was a retailer, selling coffee beans and equipment. No espresso drinks, no couches, no baristas. What caught Schultz's attention wasn't the coffee. It was the passion, the almost obsessive focus on quality, the respect for craft. Then came Italy, a trip that would define his future. In Milan, Schultz noticed something simple. Coffee wasn't just a drink. It was a ritual, a pause, a social anchor. People stood at the bar, talked, argued, connected. The cafes weren't luxurious. They weren't quiet. They were alive. Schultz returned to Seattle with the conviction: America didn't need better coffee beans. It needed better places. When he pitched the idea internally, he met resistance. The founders didn't want to become a restaurant business. They feared dilution, distraction. So Schultz left, not in anger, but in belief. He started his own company, an espresso bar concept inspired by Italy. The early days were fragile. Money was tight. Growth was uncertain. Eventually, he bought Starbucks itself, merged the ideas, and took control. This was the first real turning point. Starbucks would no longer just sell coffee. It would sell experience. But Schultz made another decision. One that most observers missed at the time. He invested heavily in employees. Not executives. Not shareholders. Employees. Health insurance for part-time workers. Stock options for baristas. Training programs. Clear paths for advancement. This wasn't charity. It was philosophy. Schultz believed that if people felt respected, they would create better experiences. And better experiences would drive growth. For a time, the formula worked beautifully. Starbucks expanded rapidly. City by city. Country by country. The stores became familiar. Predictable. Safe. They offered a third place. Not home. Not work. But something in between. Competitors struggled to copy it. They could mimic drinks. They could copy layouts. But not culture. Schultz became more than a CEO. He became a symbol of values-driven capitalism. But scale changes everything. As Starbucks grew, pressure mounted. From Wall Street. From analysts. From investors. Growth had to accelerate. Margins had to improve. Systems had to tighten. Gradually, the experience began to thin. Automation replaced ritual. Speed replaced craft. The smell of coffee faded behind efficiency. In 2008, Schultz returned as CEO. Not to expand, but to repair. He shut down stores, slowed growth, refocused on fundamentals. He retrained baristas, simplified menus, recentered the brand. It was a rare moment. A founder admitting something was lost. Starbucks recovered. Financially. Culturally. The question lingered. Could a company this large still feel human? Today, Howard Schultz occupies a complex place. He is admired, criticized, studied. Some see him as proof that capitalism can be ethical. Others see contradictions, union tensions, executive power, political ambition. Schultz himself seems aware of this tension. He speaks often about conscience, about responsibility, about the limits of growth. His story isn't clean or perfectly inspirational. It's unresolved. Howard Schultz didn't just build a company. He built an argument about what work could feel like and what leadership should consider. The real question isn't whether he succeeded. It's whether his model can survive without him, and whether companies built on ideals can keep them once the world demands more.